What would you do if the love of your life had died in a sudden freak accident? Would you grieve and let them put your darling underground? Would you be like Violent J and dig her up to take on dates? Would you just accept fate and eventually move on to somebody new? Or are you going to do what any rational partner would do and bring her back by any means necessary, even if it means using other people's body parts? Hey, whatever. That's true love. That is ride or die right there. Hello and welcome back, dear viewers. I'm STARGUTZZZ, and this week we'll be discussing a little bit more of an obscure piece of horror cinema called Frankenhooker. This is a film I haven't really seen anybody talk about. In fact, the way that I discovered it was through Tumblr. Just one of the fellows that I'm following on Tumblr that is in the slasher community just started posting a whole bunch of Frankenhooker stuff one day. And that is the only time that I have ever seen somebody referencing this film. So, maybe I'm wrong, but I have not seen anybody talk about Frankenhooker. But upon the GIFs and images and behind the scenes looks that this person posted that just assaulted my timeline, I knew I wanted to watch it eventually, and now that I have, I kind of feel like they have every right to be this obsessed with Frankenhooker. Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, it was a really fun and cute little film that I do recommend it. I'm just gonna throw it out there right here in the beginning. I do recommend this film, and in fact, I will go the lengths to say that this is a film horror enthusiasts should watch. But why do I recommend this film? And as I have started recording, there is a thunderstorm outside. How fitting. Before going into why this movie is worth your time, I want to briefly go over the narrative. Now, warning, this review will contain a few spoilers, but I will refrain from spoiling too much. So that means I will not be telling you every single little tiny detail that happens in this movie. Hi, hello, my name is STARGUTZZZ, and it's actually a little bit of a pet peeve of mine when somebody does a movie review and the review is just describing exactly what happens in the movie, and that's the review. I do not play like that. This is going to be a review in the traditional sense of a review, so if you're looking for someone to just describe the movie to you, this ain't your channel. But also, like, the movie is literally free on Tubi. It is free to watch on Tubi. Just go watch the movie. I'm digressing. So, let's get into it. What is this movie about? Frankenhooker is a 1990 horror comedy directed by Frank Henenlotter, the mind behind the 1982 cult classic Basket Case. And just an FYI, between you and me, I do think Frankenhooker should be a cult classic as well. Come on. It begins when a medical student dropout named Jeffrey Franken, played by James Lorinz, loses his fiancée Elizabeth, played by Patty Mullins, to a freak accident involving one of his inventions. After this accident, Jeffrey manages to save and preserve Elizabeth's head while he discovers a way to bring her back. And as any fictional character with Franken in the surname might do, Jeffrey goes down a mad scientist. They say mad doctor in the film. I prefer mad scientist. A mad scientist path of, he has the intentions of collecting fresh body parts to attach Elizabeth's noggin to. But hold on. This is a parody of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So Jeffrey's not just going to be grave digging or going through a morgue, right? No. Jeffrey decides, I am going to ethically source the bodies myself by finding the perfect hooker body for Elizabeth. How sweet of him. Wow. Well, things don't really go according to Jeffrey's plan, as what ensues from his actions are a hotel room full of exploding prostitutes, a freakishly strong hooker zombie death machine, and a massive clump of unused limbs coming to life and enacting revenge.
Anybody got a stem?
If that was too much for you to handle, the TLDR is Jeffrey's fiancée Elizabeth died. He's bringing her back by using body parts of dead hookers. That's the movie. That's it. Hey, we're getting some lightning now. We're gonna be making our own Frankenhooker today. Do you hear the thunder? Can you hear it? So before I went into this movie, I was expecting it to involve Elizabeth a lot more. I mean, when I saw all the gifs and pictures, the behind-the-scenes stuff that the person on Tumblr was reposting like crazy, so much of it was focused on Elizabeth that I didn't even know Jeffrey existed until the movie began, and I think he's like the first character we meet. I mean, it makes sense. Frankenhooker had to be created by somebody, right? But I thought I just didn't know how it was gonna happen, you know? I just didn't know how it was gonna happen yet. For all I knew, it could have just been a pimp that had no hose, who was like grave robbing and doing his own Franken stuff. That would have been cool. It could have been a pimp who lost his hose. And can I be honest, I was actually expecting the whole hooker part of Frankenhooker to be a little bit sleazier than what it actually is. And I thought that it would have the same air of raunchy sexiness that can sometimes be found in a Charles Band film. But when the film ended up primarily being focused on Jeffrey, I was like, what the hell is this? What is this? I was a little bit confused at first. And typically it would have been a really big complaint for me if it was something called Frankenhooker. It has this like female monster as a lead, and she's hardly in the film. It's based on who fucking cares. I would feel that way if Jeffrey's character wasn't so enjoyable. He is a good character. And it is true, I am a little bit upset that Elizabeth does not get more screen time than what she does. But at the same time, after watching Frankenhooker a few times, I'm really not upset at all that Jeffrey is such a focus in the narrative. In fact, Jeffrey is probably one of my favorite aspects about the film, and I don't really see why more girls, gays, and theys in the Tumblr slasher community aren't giving Jeffrey Franken more attention. Jeffrey Franken is just psychotic in every best possible way. Not only is the character well written, but I think the actor, James Lorinz, really makes the character too. Like, he's really good at playing a psychotic person.
Matter of fact, it'll be a whole new you. Let me show you what I mean. Isn't she gorgeous?
You like it? It's very generous.
It really feels like Lorenz knows what he's doing with Jeffrey's character. Like, he knows exactly the role that he is playing. And he pulls it off fantastically, to the point that there are some moments in the film that feel more improvised than scripted.
No, they're coming back. They're gonna be back in a couple of weeks.
What do you know about this, huh? What do you fucking know about this? What do you dress like that for, man?
Do the right thing.
Did you do the fucking right thing? That's the question. Did you do the right thing?
I gotta get back. We're going to the hospital now. I gotta go to my emergency room.
I'll put you in the fucking emergency room.
Okay, come on, just put one. I know. Okay, one step in front of the other. That's right. Okay, let me get the door. I know you did. All right. Don't bump your head. That's right. Nice and easy. That's right. I know you did. Okay, thank you. I told you. That's a good man. All right, take it easy now. Take it easy. Don't flip out. Don't flip out. Just relax. You gotta do the drill. You do the drill and you're gonna feel much.
And listen, there are a whole lot of features that I love about Jeffrey's character, but I'm not going to discuss them right now. It is going to be discussed just a little bit later on in the video. There are many aspects of Jeffrey's character that make him very unique from other horror movie protagonists. However, I couldn't help but notice Jeffrey has a lot of aspects about him that reminds me of the typical Lovecraftian protagonist as well. Not just in Stuart Gordon's adaptations, but in like the actual non-adapted stories by Lovecraft. He resembles those protagonists.
Something's happening to me that I just don't understand. I can't think straight anymore.
Like my reasoning is all, twisted and distorted, you know? I seem to be disassociating myself from reality more and more each day. I'm antisocial. I'm becoming dangerously amoral. I've lost the ability to distinguish between right from wrong, good from bad. I'm scared, Ma. I mean, I feel like sometimes I'm plunging headfirst into some kind of black void of sheer, utter madness or something.
Do you want a sandwich?
I think Jeffrey is an amazing addition to the mad scientist trope, and I think what really sells it for me is that he is constantly attempting to convince himself that there is nothing wrong with what he's doing, like everything is okay. All of his actions have a reasonable twist to them.
I mean, it's not like I'm committing murder. I'm not killing anybody. The crack is what's going to kill them. Hell, it's killing them already. I'm just speeding up the process, that's all. I'm not shooting anyone. I'm not stabbing anyone. I'm merely going to place a lethal form of crack in their presence.
It's just, I can't help but to observe how much of his behaviors are akin to the characters that Jeffrey Combs plays in Reanimator from 1985 and from Beyond. and From Beyond from 1986, both predating Frankenhooker. And listen, this is not a criticism. This is just an interesting observation. Because I wouldn't doubt that the whole mad scientist thing, that the mad scientist characters that Jeffrey Combs played inspired probably both the script and Lorenz's acting. And, like, that's fine. I have nothing against that. Again, I think James Lorinz plays Jeffrey Franken really well, and I wish his actor had been in more horror movies, but it seems like he's mostly known for some kind of role on Frasier. I didn't watch Frasier. Although most of the movie is focused on the process of bringing Elizabeth back to life, once she is revived, her actress and her character is just as a strong and unique presence as Jeffrey. Patty Mullen did a great job in her role. Like, I understand why there were so many behind the scenes kind of footage on Tumblr of specifically Patty Mullen's behind the scenes doing Frankenhooker. She did great. Patty Mullen did a great job in her role as, a Frankenstein rendition of a hooker. Not only are her faces goofy and on point, but you've got to appreciate that Frankenwalk.
Party! Want a party? Jersey boy here wants a twosome. Lonely? Need some company? Going out? Want a date? Party!
She nails the Frankenwalk so good. She nails the Frankenfaces so good. She is just... I'm glad that Frankenhooker ended up being more goofy than it did, like, sexy and raunchy. Don't get me wrong, there's some cringe, sexy raunchiness in there.
Utterly awesome. Nice buoyancy, too.
But it ended up being more goofy, and I really appreciate that. And listen, I know that Frankenstein was Victor, and it was not the monster, okay? It's less of a mouthful to say. We all know what I'm talking about. We all know what I am talking about. Also, speaking of the source material and Elizabeth, apparently the Mary Shelley reference that this film has is that Elizabeth's last name is Shelley. However, I didn't know this. And I wouldn't have ever known this unless I looked at the trivia page on IMDb, which, how trustworthy that can be, I don't know. Never once is Elizabeth's last name shared, and it's not even in the credits, so, like, how would we ever have known? If you're like me and you actually read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or if you at least watched Frankenhole on Adult Swim, You probably had the same thought I did. Was her name being Elizabeth not the reference to the source material? Because, I mean, I guess not. Because I additionally wondered, like, if they kept the name Elizabeth, why didn't they call Jeffrey Victor? If you've read The Modern Prometheus, then you would know Elizabeth is Victor's adopted cousin, who he later marries. Womp womp. Did Henenlotter know this and just decide not to use the name Victor because of the whole weird adopted cousin growing up together thing? Because, listen, if so, coward. I'm just kidding. But I feel like it could have aided in the weird and already very dark humor of the film. Like, it just, it wouldn't have been surprising if they played on the whole cousin marriage thing. Are you kidding me? You think I would have been surprised if this movie made jokes about the whole cousin thing? Why didn't they? That's my question. Also, the narrative of the mad scientists bringing their love back from the dead could have been a really cool alternate universe for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, because in the book, the monster kills Elizabeth on their wedding night, and for some reason Victor doesn't bring her back. It's been a few years since I read it. What happened? Did she get mangled? Did he just not want to do that to her? What was the reason that he didn't just... I'm digressing. This isn't about literal Frankenstein. We were talking about the future cult classic, Frankenhooker. But like I said, before watching this movie, a lot of the content I saw related to it only dealt with Patty Mullen behind the scenes and Elizabeth. While she's not in the film much, she does a great job at her role. I especially I just can't get over her Franken faces and her ability to maintain such a blank and emotionless expression for so long while also shouting about sex. And the shouts are so monotone also, by the way.
Somebody like me who can protect you. Somebody who understands your needs. It was me.
Honey, in case you ain't noticed, I not only got all the right parts, but I got them in all the right places.
I know this. Oh, I know this.
I really wish Mullen had been cast in other movies. I think she was only in 2 films and like an episode of something. But she does remind me a whole lot of Catherine Isabel, who plays Ginger Fitzgerald from Ginger Snaps, and Mary Mason from American Mary. And listen, maybe it was just the hair. But at the end of Frankenhooker, when Elizabeth is in the whole doctor garb, it really did remind me a whole lot of American Mary. And the way that Frankenhooker ends is also very it's fitting. The situation is fitting too. In the full soapbox episodes that I've done, I know I've mentioned a few times before about how big of a fan I am of horror that leans into outlandish, almost cartoonish actions, qualities, rules, whatever. I talked about it in episode 2 when the movie of the week was Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and how fitting it was to add like cartoon physics and cartoon logic to the real world, and how it can also kind of add to the horror of the story as well. I feel like Frankenhooker is another horror movie that thrives from utilizing more unrealistic, exaggerated, and sci-fi themes throughout. One of the very first examples that Frankenhooker was not going to be working by real-world rules is in the opening credits as Jeffrey is tinkering with a brain creature. Not only does this strange creature exist, but everyone around him just, they act like it's nothing outrageous or strange, like...
Jeffrey? Be a doll and pass me the ketchup.
This is normal, average. Of course he's possible of doing this, right? It is literally a brain with a working eyeball, and nobody bats an eye. Hookers explode, everybody loses their mind. It's to the point that his mother sees what he's doing, and she's congratulating him. She's like, the creature is finally stable. It's looking great. You're doing great.
Oh, look. Look. You're working fine now. Oh, Jeffrey, it's looking so much better. What is he?
Obama.
His mother and Elizabeth are both very supportive and proud of, you know, him being a mad scientist. And that's very great. That shows how deeply these other characters love Jeffrey, but it is also the first hint to the audience that nothing in this film is going to be working by the real world rules. And somehow, after the living brain, the film continues to push and challenge what we know as reality. I really like that Frankenhooker does this, and does it so early on to establish that literally anything could happen, and anything does happen. This is going to sound so stupid, but I wasn't expecting so many unexpected things to be happening in this movie. But once it establishes, like, hey, anything can happen, it takes advantage of it. For example, the first time Jeffrey takes out the drill. Gotta
get radical here.
Oh my god. It wasn't really clear what was happening at first, but then he starts, like, lifting it up to his head. I'm like, are we doing it? Are we doing this? And
Okay, I gotta get some stewardesses.
yeah, we did it. We went there. And let me just say, it is my absolute favorite quirk of any character that I have seen. And also, after all that drilling, there's a moment where Jeffrey goes to buy crack.
How much does one of those little plastic bags cost?
And until the super crack jar is shown, I just fully believe that, hey, Jeffrey's character has moved on to smoking crack, and that's what the movie is about now.
This crack shit's killing him.
And I just accepted it. I was like, all right, actually, you know what? I thought it was a good idea. Give this psychopath some crack. See what he can do. Listen, I kind of feel... we never see him take the super crack. But hello, he is so exposed to it. Are we going to sit here and say that he wasn't affected by the super crack? Look me in the eyeball. Tell me, do you believe that when Jeffrey was sexy talking that guinea pig...
Look how sexy you are. I bet you get $1,000 a night. Well, if you weren't a guinea pig, I'd jump in that cage myself. Yes, you know.
And basically the entire room was filling up with super crack. Are you telling me he did not inhale any? Are you trying to convince me that Jeffrey is not on crack? He is so on crack. These moments not only add to how entertaining and crazy Jeffrey's character is, but it's another factor that establishes these cartoonish rules or these exaggerations of a person's character. Frankenhooker does a great job of showing off the exaggerations of a character, with Jeffrey being a very prime example. I believe I've seen head drilling in a movie before, so I'm not going to say that it's unheard of. However, I haven't seen a character doing it to themselves in the hopes of a positive outcome. This element isn't just funny, but it adds to who Jeffrey is and how he's so insane. He is drilling holes into his skull, into his brain, to 1, calm himself down, and 2, it helps him come up with ideas. Would you say this isn't a cartoonish quality? Let me know in the comments. I've expressed love for horror movies that aren't afraid to be cartoonish and goofy in this manner. And Frankenhooker is another incredible example of what I mean. I think why these qualities lend themselves so well to the horror genre is because horror is already a realm where just about anything could happen. Horror has a lot of subgenres within it as well, such as paranormal, sci-fi, demonic possessions, splatter gore, creature features, psychological, natural, and body horror. I could go on, trust me, I could go on. Don't you fucking test me. All of which utilize a break from reality and ignore the rules of reality, which we know. Perhaps another way to describe it is that horror immediately asks us to suspend our disbelief in a way that other genres don't necessarily always do. Because of that pre-established suspension of disbelief, I believe there's room for zany, loony, exaggerated, and playful characteristics to really shine through. If you want an example of horror doing this, and it's not also a comedy, because it's very easy for comedy and horror to do this, the original Evil Dead the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and the first 2 Child's Play movies. Those are some examples I would give of horror doing this without necessarily being a comedy. When we go into Frankenhooker, we already know, without even watching it, that it's not going to be set in our reality because a person is going to be coming back from the dead. And we can already deduce, we can already figure this out because it's called Frankenhooker. The poster and the name is a very heavy implication on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, where somebody who is dead comes back to life. So, you know, if reality is already gonna be bent, why not just go full force? You know, especially when it's horror comedy. Why wouldn't you go full? Why wouldn't we be going full force? And I know I discussed it when I talked about Killer Clowns, but I'm gonna say it again here. When you really think about it, there is something a little bit scary about cartoons, or, you know, what you would define as a cartoon, whatever, being in our reality and wreaking havoc. It's uncanny, it's unnatural, and the zaniness can easily come across as psychopathic. Do you need an example? Because Eddie's brother died. So Frankenhooker doesn't have any scary moments. It's mostly a comedy film. And listen, some of the comedy's a little bit cringe. Especially during like the examination process of the hookers. It gets pretty
Utterly awesome.
But this is a point I just wanted to include since we're on the topic of horror with cartoonish, outlandish logic. So, how would I rate Frankenhooker? Well, overall, I think I would put Frankenhooker at an A tier. It's fun with no plot lulls in it, and it just, the cast is really good. They're good. Every actor, actress they have in it is really good at their jobs. I especially think it is a movie that would be fun to do a little bit of puff puff pass with a group of friends. I do think as more people watch it, it could potentially be considered a cult classic in the future. If it isn't already, and it doesn't seem like it is. Like I said, the only person that I've ever heard talk about Frankenhooker is just this random person that I'm following on Tumblr. So this movie might not be for you if you don't like fun. But seriously, if you don't like crude, dark, cheesy humor and campiness around prostitutes, then this probably isn't the movie for you. But then again, this probably also might not be the channel for you, because I'm all about that shit, and that's just gonna be the kind of shit that I watch and recommend. Thank you guys so much for being here and for watching my movie review, watching me ramble about a movie that I think is definitely worth the watch. Again, it is free on Tubi. What the hell? I'll put the link to the movie in the description and make it even easier for you to watch this film. If you liked it, please give it a like. If you disliked it, that's alright. You can dislike too. If you made it all the way to the end, put a lightning bolt in the comments, you know, for Frankenstein, whatever. I thought about the zombie, but I think the lightning bolt is a little bit cuter. Also, if you've seen this movie and you want to share something about it, put that in the comments too. I love hearing new shit about movies, especially if it's trivia. If you want to see more movie reviews done by moi, then consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification. I would really, really appreciate it. And listen, if this is a movie that you think sounds cool and you want to watch it with your friends, I think you should share this video with your friends and say, hey, this is a little discussion about this movie that I think we might enjoy watching. And then you guys can go watch it this weekend. Come on. Anyway, again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you giving me your time. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Anybody got a stem?